Apologies are necessary. They are honorable and necessary. When you have done wrong, you owe an apology. And what that means is that the denigration of apology to being someone that can be prompted even when you haven't done wrong actually reduces the efficacy of apology. And if you're willing to denigrate apology this way, that suggests that you don't actually believe that apology itself is a value.
So it did not occur to me as we were thinking about this segment, but it now occurs to me the very first assignment that I gave in my very first Evergreen course was to have students explain why apology matters.
Excellent.
Why should simply vibrating air molecules and saying you're sorry make any difference to anyone?
Yeah.
Right?
So what kinds of conversations emerged from that, or what did you have in your head? Like what's the answer? Is this going to be on the test?
No, it will not be on the test because there isn't going to be a test. But first of all, it was a mental revolution for most of these students to face a question like that because they weren't familiar with the style of question.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
Apology is something that we all experience at some level.
Yeah.
And the question of why it works and therefore what does work even mean? And
right.
The answer is, well, if I am feeling some way towards you and you violate some agreement that is presumably unstated between us, and then you apologize to me for doing so, then that changes how I feel about you. You know, the violation changes how I feel about you, and then the apology restores how I feel about you. And and of course, more than that, if you feel that I've wronged you, and I don't think I've wronged you, and maybe I don't even know that you feel that I've wronged you, either you simmer and seethe and it never comes up, and probably we just, in our case, it would get resolved. But, say we didn't know each other that well, maybe the friendship dissolves over it because it's this unresolved thing. Hopefully, more likely, at some point, at the point that, the person who may or may not have wronged the other person is approached by the person who thinks they've been wronged and says, this is weighing on me. I can't get over it. I really think that thing that you did, affected me this way negatively, and you shouldn't have done it, and you owe me an apology. And if one of at least two things then happens, the person who did or did not wrong the other person says, oh my God, I didn't see it that way. You're right. Or, but let me think on it for a little while. They come back and say, you're right. I didn't see it that way. I didn't know that other thing, or I was just blind to the effects that I was having. That's one outcome. Another outcome is, no, actually, here's how I understand the world that makes what I did acceptable or right. And, maybe there's nuance there and says, yeah, I could have done it this way, but I actually think the way that I did do it is appropriate. Can we talk about whether or not you still think that I owe you an apology? And, simply going like, we agree to disagree and going your separate ways isn't nearly as effective, because more often than not, agree to disagree is, oh my God, that person is just unable to see reason, and I hope I don't end up in another situation like them again. All right, so we're going to come back to agree to disagree. Mm-hmm. I would point out there's some other outcomes here that have that begin to tell you the answer to this question. One is somebody delivers an apology that isn't an apology, one that you believe is not heartfelt, or that comes with a structure. I'm sorry you feel that way.
Yes.
Well, you can be sorry you feel that way without being sorry that you acted the way you did.
Exactly.
Right. And so if you begin to get the idea that
I'm so sorry your brain looks the way it does.
I'm sorry you're forcing me to have this conversation with you. Right. That's not a good apology. Mm-mm. But then there's this other really interesting case where the person delivers what appears to be a genuine apology and then makes the same error again. Mm. Maybe they're just in the habit of behaving this way and doing it again. And
they need to lose the habit. They need to learn how not to be in the habit. That's a possibility.
Right. Or maybe they're not a trustworthy person to interact with. And so then the point is, well, I'm not going to continue a relationship with somebody who keeps harming me in the same way and then apologizing and it doesn't mean anything. Right. So anyway, the basic point is what you really get here is obvious negotiation.
Yes.
Right? It is negotiation. Now, why would it be negotiation? Because let's say that I don't know, I leave you stranded somewhere for an hour, mm-hmm. right? And there's not a really good reason, mm-hmm. right? I've just been careless. And it's like, okay, do I feel the hour that I just cost you, right? Maybe I do feel it, right? I'm really sorry I did that. But then it doesn't change the behavior. You're welcome. But then it doesn't change the behavior that causes it. And I do it to you again and again, right? And the point is, actually,
at some point, I don't let you take the car and drive away from me anymore. I'm not going to accept being stranded.
But here's the thing. When I apologize, if I've done it well, right, then you know that I know what I did, which then puts an extra responsibility on me not to do it again, because you know I know. It's not like this is in my own blind spot. We've got it promoted to consciousness, right? And yet I still do it. That means I don't really care that much, right? And so... it's going to take more time than is good for me or you for you to figure it out. But it's quite possible there's something deeply embedded enough in the habits, in the way of tracking time, for instance. Right. And actually, we do have this. There's stuff about me that you and I both agree ought to change, but you and I also both know it's not under my control.
And it's kind of like that. Like you don't leave me stranded like that. But there is a sort of a like, oh my God, again, again with the not having kept track of time, and here I thought we had agreed to something, but it's not that you don't value my time,
right?
And it's not that you misunderstand that not valuing my time is okay. It's an actual more slowly than either of us would like, but sort of changing assessment of, oh, okay, actually there are other characters, other people involved here, and they are also living on the same timeline that I am.
Okay. Yep. So what I believe the answer to the question is and was, and what the discussion over several days actually emerged into, was...
that you were talking now about your classroom and the apology
classroom. And still, it was one of the most marvelous classrooms full of eclectic students who signed up for the craziest description I could come up with.
This is your first evergreen program ever. This would have been like in the fall of 2003 or something.
Yeah, it was called Adaptation. I'm still in touch with several of the people from that. Yeah. And we had an extraordinarily good time, even though I did not know what I was doing. But
that's part of what contributes to it.
Yeah, it was great. It was very seat of the pants, but it worked well. But anyway, the point is, apology is a discussion of debt, right? It is also a promotion of the costly behavior to consciousness, which increases the chances of being able to correct the behavior going forward, and increases the chances that both parties will be able to see if somebody is simply just not, as you say, valuing someone else's time, for example. So the point is, an apology, a good one, is both a promise not to do it again, or to exert the proper effort to prevent doing it again, and an IOU. Right? Why does it make a difference that somebody apologizes to you? Because at the point that I say, okay, I just cost you an hour, right? Am I going to give you a hard time over a half an hour somewhere else? No. In fact, what I've said is that my behavior resulted in you losing an hour that you couldn't do anything with. So,
and this is part of why, especially in romantic bonds, apologies, at least from men to women, often are accompanied by gifts. Right, the IOU nature of it is, I know that I cannot, if it's a legitimate apology, if it's a warranted and legitimate apology, I know that I cannot actually give you the thing back by which I wronged you, but here's some flowers or a necklace or whatever it is.
Yeah, it could be a symbolic gift or it could be a meaningful gift. But I think actually the place to take this is in a complex relationship, whatever kind of relationship it is, sibling, spousal, whatever. That debt does not exist in isolation, right? Yes. So the point is, it doesn't have to be...
The flowers don't actually shut the door on the IOU.
They don't shut the door on the IOU. They're an advertisement that I recognize I screwed up, for example. Yeah. So the point is, these relationships are complex, and we don't get the same. We're not always paid back in kind. But in order for the relationship to be durable, you have to feel that it is on balance better to be in it than out of it, right? And so it may be that I never fix my not linear relationship with time, and that will have impacts.
Even the producer is snickering now.
Even the producer is snickering because he's seen it too. But the point is, that is a cost that exists in the relationship. I am aware of an obligation to minimize it. And the net effect is that cost doesn't overwhelm the benefits
Right.
So anyway, the point is, why does simply saying something to somebody make any difference? Well, it doesn't automatically. There has to be reason to think the person means it. There has to be agreement over what it is that is being apologized for.
Right.
And there has to be evidence that actually you take the debt seriously. If those things accrue, then the point is actually, of course, it makes a difference, because an IOU from somebody, I mean, why does a piece of paper make a difference when somebody says, I owe you $1,000?
Right.
Well, because it's a legal contract. Because it holds some fraction of the value, a large fraction of the value of $1,000, because you can collect on it. And so it is that style of object. And anyway, we had a reason to be talking about apology, but the idea that there is a very deep meaning of this, and that it is unpackable, but that you could certainly, in fact, almost everybody goes an entire lifetime without ever thinking, well, why does that work, and how does it work, and what kind of object is it?